Hey, what's going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot. Welcome to a new edition of Disney 101. It's been a hop, skip, and a jump, but we are back here with you guys. Hope you guys are having a magical evening. Steve, how are you doing today?
Good. A little
We are
tired from the
back
week, but
here with you guys.
other than that,
Hope you
can't
guys are
complain.
having a magical I have to figure out where this is playing back. I do apologize there. I got you. Good. Alrighty, apologize. Sorry about that, Steve. So what were you saying? I had to read it on our Twitter.
That's okay. Good. Tired from the week, but other than that, can't complain.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, we had talked about how the last time we were here, we told you guys that we were going to come back at the end of the night. We were going to broadcast our playing of HQ Trivia live, and we did just that, and we won. Congratulations again, Steve, on a big win there. Have you decided what you're going to spend that prize money on?
I might buy like half a stick of gum.
Well, I do think, and it's a shame because, like, as we were playing that, and I'm building up anticipation of like, wow, wonder how many people are going to win this year, and then you won 30 cents. I was like, man, that might be why, unfortunately, some folks have kind of stopped playing HQ Trivia because the prize money, even though it's fun, the prize money is dwindled down to such a small amount of money.
And I would plug a game that I don't even play anymore, but that's why I liked Cash Show a little bit more because you got more opportunities to win money as you went along. It
Oh,
wasn't
gotcha.
just
Yeah,
because I think it started around like question 10 or something where it was like, okay, now you can start getting money like after the first couple of questions. And then it was okay, well, if you win everything, then you get a little bit more. But
well, there you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. So where we left off the last time around as well, we had talked about how you were going to be going down to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. You'll actually be doing that tomorrow. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yeah, we had a little couple of delays, I guess you could say, but we were definitely going tomorrow. All unforeseen circumstances barred. So,
Alrighty. Well, hey, life happens. Life comes at you fast sometimes. It is what it is. But I did get to go down to the Mad Hatter bus down. I took the wife down there in Brooklyn, New York. And when we're done here today, I will post some of our pictures from that event over on our Twitter at Disney101pod, which you could follow us on there. We love chatting with all of you guys and seeing what you guys have going on at Disney101pod and talking and expanding the Disney community and the Disney family, so to speak, over on Twitter. But we went down to the Mad Hatter bus. This was like an Alice in Wonderland themed gin party. And so the Mad Hatter was there. It was a female Mad Hatter was hosting the event, and it was pretty cool because each one of the different rooms that you went in, they hosted a different type of party. They had different like mixed type drinks. They were all focused around gin. Gin was the way that they were kind of building this up. But it was really interesting, and it was cool that they had this. They also had like a little the guy with the one ear. They had the guy with the one ear kind of hanging down, and then they also have the big. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they had the big mouse, and then they also had the rabbit, but the rabbit had one ear down, and those were like your three type characters. And you'd go into each room, and they'd be hosting the different types of events. But it was pretty cool.
interesting. Yeah, that's why I always like New York City because you can do those kinds of cool pop up things. That kind of thing isn't really so popular down in Orlando because then you can just go to Disney World instead.
Right, exactly. Like who would? But it really, a lot of the people that we were on there with. I mean, there was a couple different parties that were going on there. Obviously, it was great for something like that. But then you did have your Disney fans who, you sometimes are just pining for a little Disney away from home. And obviously, the one downfall of the entire experience, we did ask afterwards if my brother-in-law would be able to come with us next time. Who was only 18, and they did say no. Unfortunately, it's a drinking attraction, and so because of that, they have to limit it to 21 and over. I felt like maybe they could, wristband you or something, throw a wristband on you if you're going to be drinking at the event. I felt like, though, there would be an opportunity. But what was really cool was not only did you get to go in there and do that, and they gave you like little snacks around each one. So I think like the first one, they had like a themed snack that was like little like finger sandwiches type deal. And then the next time around, they did like a little Jello shot type thing. And then the next time around, it was like a kind of a fruit parfait type deal. And they gave you that with each one of the different rooms that you kind of went into. And by rooms, I mean like it's one big room. And it was actually more like tables because it was a tea party. So you'd have like a table with one that was hosted by the Mad Hatter. Then you had another table that was hosted by the kind of like the big mouse, so to speak.
The Dormouse.
What's that?
The Dormouse.
The Dormouse. That's why I have you there. Yes, it was the Dormouse, and Dormouse was fantastic. Shout out to Dormouse at the Mad Hatter tea party bus in Brooklyn. He is the man, and he's hysterical. And if you get a chance to go, make sure you stick around when he hosts your table, because this guy is he's talented as all hell. He was playing a bunch of different songs. He had a little ukulele that he was just telling you to give him a word, and then he basically made up like an entire Disney song based around that word. And it was fun because they actually showed you how they were making each one of the mixed drinks, threw some dry ice in there. You had the Alice in Wonderland theme music going on. Outside, you saw the different Cheshire Cat, and you saw all the different, everything kind of upside down. You were able to play some mini golf outside. And then they also had an artist out there to create your Disney type caricature picture, which I thought was really cool. They gave her like $5 additional, and she did that for you. Unfortunately, we had the later showing, so she was gone by the time we left. But it's a good time. I can't recommend them enough. I will try my best to give you them I'll put the link as well on on the video here, as well as on our Twitter page.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was a good time. A good way to spend. I think it was like a Friday evening, and I mean, I think it ended up being like $45, $50. I will say this. Right before we left on there, I read the reviews, and a lot of the reviews for the Mad Hatter bus were, the finger foods or whatever, the food wasn't enough for the price. I think people need to realize, and this is why I always say, proceed reviews with caution. And when we get to our great debate between Disney World, Disneyland a little bit later on, take reviews with caution, because we had kind of psyched ourselves up. Some of the reviews were mixed for this over on Facebook, their Facebook group, saying that the food wasn't enough for the price. But remember, it's not about the food. It's more about you're going there for the experience, and obviously for the drinks, which definitely lived up to where they were going for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very telling statement also, because when you go to a place like that, it helps when the food is good and the drinks are good, but you're going, like you said, you're going for the atmosphere, and you're going for the experience. We went, I actually took my wife to like a Polar Express train ride, because Polar Express is like one of her favorite movies, and definitely her favorite Christmas movie. So they do a Polar Express ride where you actually go on a big, there's like the huge train, and, there's like, they kind of play out a lot of the movie on the train ride and that kind of stuff. And they give you hot chocolate and cookies and stuff. And if I were to rate my experience based on the food, it was okay. It was definitely, it was good, but it wasn't like, oh my God, mind blowing. But it's because they gave you like cookies and stuff. Like, you're going for the experience. Like,
yeah, and I mean, I think that sounds incredible. That's Disney, right?
That is not Disney. No, that's Warner Brothers.
Not Disney. Okay, I was wondering, because so they do their own. Is that down in Orlando?
It was about an hour or so away from Orlando. Actually, it wasn't. It had nothing to do with like Orlando or Universal or Disney or anything like that. It was actually like an hour away from us, which is probably a good hour and a half, 2 hours away from Disney. So it wasn't actually like anything related. It just happened that they go on tour. Actually, I think they do one somewhere in New York, if not in the city. I think it's maybe somewhere on the island. So I forget what it's actually called, but it's like, if you Google Polar Express train ride, I'm sure you'd be able to find it. But and if I would say, this is how much we paid and this is all we got for food. Yeah, if I'm judging it by that, it's a letdown. But if I'm judging the whole experience, and if I'm judging it by the face that my wife had on her when she found out that that's what we were doing, that was priceless. So I mean, it's it's all subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I am the type of guy, unfortunately, that whenever I go to a review site, if there's like 3,000 reviews, but there's one negative one, I usually will go to that one negative one and read it. So just please, don't be me. Don't do that because you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment by doing that. But let's get into kind of a couple of different things here, starting with a bit of sad news. Now, I wouldn't say necessarily, in large scheme of things, necessarily sad news, but Chris Evans today did put on his Twitter, officially wrapped on Avengers 4. It was an emotional day to say the least. Playing the role over the last 8 years has been an honor. To everyone in front of the camera, behind the camera, and in the audience, thank you for the memories. Eternally grateful. So he posted this about 6 hours ago, confirming that this next Avengers movie will in fact be the end of at least him playing the role of Captain America. Kind of the end of an era. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And it's interesting because, in the comics, there have been other people to take up the Captain America mantle. So it's always possible that Captain America as a superhero is going to continue in the Marvel Expanded Universe. Or, maybe if they're just saying, they're going to go out on top and say, we're going to go in a different direction after Avengers 4 and, start with a whole new cast and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's a bittersweet moment because, it's an end of an era, but at least they're going out on top, and at least it's not, 10 years from now when they're really, really, really pulling at straws to try and come up with more stuff. And, I think it's a good cycle, and it's a good way to finish off everything.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the guy had an 8-year run playing the role. Of course, in the comment section underneath this did, people, of course, are jumping to conclusions that Captain America is being killed off in the next Avengers movie, and that's why he's saying that. But I think it's just that's the end of the kind of the Avengers saga, right?
Yeah, I mean, either, one way or the other, it doesn't really matter, right? Like whether I guess moving forward, it would suck if he's dead, but if he's not going to, if the character isn't going to be a character in the universe anymore, what real difference does it make?
Exactly. All right. One of the other things that was talked about, and I saw this here over on WDWNT.com, it does appear that Disney is not going to be bringing back Stitch's Great Escape. It says that Stitch's Great Escape has already been starting to be dismantled, and they will not be bringing that back. But something that will be coming back is Rafiki's Planet Watch, Steve's personal favorite attraction over at Animal Kingdom. They're bringing that back in the spring of 2019. But the end of Stitch's Great Escape. So I don't know if that confirms that the Wreck-It Ralph attraction will be taking its place, or if something else eventually will come and take its place.
I'm sure something. That is pretty prime real estate. So I don't think that area is going to sit empty for long. It kind of just depends on how much, the kind of, I guess, different attraction that they're going to make, because it depends on how much of the building they're gutting and how much of that building they're changing. That's why Frozen was a pretty quick turnaround to go from Maelstrom to the Frozen ride, because they didn't really change a whole lot of the building and the structure of the building itself. They pretty much just slapped on a different skin and, went away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I remember the first time going on that ride, that attraction rather, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is great. This really captures Stitch in all of his stitchiness, so to speak. However, after you went on it a couple times, I felt like, it really didn't have the staying power of something you'd want to go on time and time again, with him belching on you and you smelling the random pizza stuff. And he didn't really do anything in the attraction. He just kind of sat there.
It's definitely a unique attraction, and I have a very similar memory of the first time I went on it. I really liked it, but then each subsequent time I liked it less and less, to the point where once I actually worked the attraction, I was like, oh god, this is one of the worst attractions ever.
Oh, you had actually worked the attraction?
Yeah, when I worked in Tomorrowland for a while, yeah, it was just like between the the ride going and, well, I guess, I mean, the attraction kind of breaking a lot, you know, that was mostly Stitch's problem. Stitch really liked to get into shenanigans, you know, you know, a lot of other things. So I'm not really sad to see it go.
Yeah, no, that's going to be, you know, I feel like it's the one that, and I always wonder too, just based off of how big the attraction is in terms of like how much space goes into it, the amount of people that I wonder how much longer the Monsters Inc. Laugh Factory is going to be there too, personally.
Well, the thing about Monsters Inc. is that number one, it holds a huge amount of people. It's a pretty big crowd pleaser as far as, you know, yeah, it's not a thrilling ride or anything like that, but most of the people, when you go into Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor and you leave happy, like you leave satisfied with the time that you spent there. Most of the time when you go into Stitch's Great Escape, when you leave, you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah, well, and I will say about the Laugh Factory too, one of the things I always really appreciated about it is that it's, you know, it's never the same. It's always a different show. Obviously, Mike Rogowski's always there. Is it Mike Rogowski that's the head of it?
Mike Wazowski.
Mike who?
Wazowski.
Terrible. Bad job out of me. But I always felt like, you know, with the different, you could submit your own questions. You could submit all these different things. I always really appreciated that. So, you know, good stuff. And I agree that that's a good attraction. What looks to be a good attraction is the brand new, as I segue here, is the brand new, the Millennium Falcon ride that is going to be coming out for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Today there was some, well, not today, but earlier there was some details that emerged about the ride thanks to MakingStarWars.net. And they basically announced that the Millennium Falcon attraction will feature randomized missions. It says Hondo is the owner of Hondo Onaka's Transport Solutions, sending your crew on mission to Corellia. Before you enter the ride, you will see the Falcon outside. As you go in and have some sort of encounter with Hondo, you board the Falcon from underground on Bayou. We assume the idea is the ship is lowered underground to let you board that way. So that means that you will be able to see the outside of the Millennium Falcon before you even board the attraction. And it honestly looks really, it sounds really, really cool. It sounds like there's going to be a couple of different missions that are going to be shown. And, you know, to me, it sounds a little bit like kind of what's going on in terms of the kind of like the way that the Star Tours ride is, where you're never going to have the same thing, but you're going to have kind of a different mission each time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound a little bit like Star Tours, but I do like the fact that Hondo is in it because he was one of my favorite characters from Clone Wars and from Star Wars Rebels a couple of times. So I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, and you know, spoiler alert here for those folks who don't want to hear this. You could kind of turn down your volume on this here for a hot minute, or if you're watching on a delay, you can just kind of scooch it along there for a minute or two. But it says the ride experience itself will initially take place in between episodes 8 and episode 9, but will be updated possibly yearly as the Star Wars canon changes with new movies. There are the 3 missions that will be shown according to /film. Mission Scenario 1, Hondo gets you involved in a race on Corellia that he's sure you can't lose with the Millennium Falcon. Mission Scenario 2, Hondo sends you to the First Order shipyard on Corellia, possibly on a mission for the Resistance. And Mission Scenario 3, your crew will have to steal some piece of cargo, but the cargo is guarded by a giant monster similar to the Maw from Solo, A Star Wars Story, and you'll have to evade the creature like the mythic heroes stealing the treasure from the Sleeping Dragon. So that's pretty, that sounds like really cool stuff.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like, I mean, it at least sounds a little bit different. Hopefully it's not a motion simulator as much as Star Tours is, so maybe there's going to be a little bit more action to it. But if it's going to be random like that, then it's probably going to have to be on, the same kind of ride system where you're able to just kind of switch everything through it a lot more streamlined.
Well, one of the things I really liked about it in this part here was also just kind of on the WDW News Today portion. Said Disney is touting that the attraction as being fully controlled by the guests, meaning that a successful mission could end up giving riders credits to use in the land. Conversely, an unsuccessful mission could mean a bounty will be placed on your head as you walk through the land. So that's pretty incredible. I love that idea, specifically because of, as I had said, I feel like that's the one thing that's missing from Mission Space is the idea that when you are failing and you're going down, they don't really let you go down, right? Like I always feel like it should end right there. You should have to get out and that's it. So that sounds incredible though.
Yeah, that does sound, that actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it, and it sounds like it's going to be something that is really fun. They also did announce a little bit of extra news in regards to Star Wars Galaxy Edge. A recent commercial filmed by Disney seems to point to the idea that there will be an opportunity for premium access to the land, possibly for Disneyland since it will open there first, and this will likely be in the form of a hard ticket event for guests to experience the land without the anticipated crowds. Due to the expected draw for the land, a hard ticket experience would be a good opportunity for die-hard Star Wars fans to experience Galaxy's Edge as intended without swarms of people in the way and along lines of attractions. So that is incredible, but I will say that I feel like it's going to start to be the norm there, is going to be these ticket events for the new lands as they open up, similar to what they've done for Toy Story Land, which we kind of talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they kind of they found someone had that idea, and all of a sudden they were like, "Wow, that's a great idea. Why haven't we thought about that yet before?" Because the past couple of openings of the lands that they had, as much good press as it is to have a 5 or 6 hour wait for your attractions, maybe not the best crowd pleaser. So I think that's definitely an interesting choice, to say the least.
Yeah, and I mean, especially like when Avatar opened up. As much as I like what is the slow boat ride there?
That is the Navi River Journey.
There you go. I almost stumped you, which would have been unprecedented. But you wait 6 hours and then go on the Navi River Journey, and within a minute you're done. I mean, you've got to kind of feel like, man, that kind of killed you half your day right there in the park, just waiting there for that 1 minute ride. Even though I do think it's pretty cool, at the end of the day, it's good that Disney's at least giving you the option. Hey, you don't want to waste so much time of your day in Animal Kingdom, you can go and do this. Or if this is your only reason for going to Animal Kingdom and you have a park hopper the rest of the day, you can go and take care of that in the morning and then be on with your day.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there anything you wanted to get to in the news this week?
No, I'm actually kind of really looking forward to our conversation here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into business here as I kind of readjust myself. But let's get into business here. The great debate, Disney World, Disneyland. This is something that, we kind of spoke about. And I will say this, and this I got the idea for this, seeing a bunch of different conversations going on, both on our Twitter page as well as on the Disney link that you could actually talk to me about the Walt Disney World made easy for everyone. And then, of course, it says not affiliated with Walt Disney World. But if you check that Facebook group out, I'm on there. I chat with you guys on there from time to time. And by seeing these different things go by, I think somebody on that page had said something like, I just booked my trip to Disneyland. Is it even worth it for me to go? Which I thought was bizarre. But kind of getting back to what we said earlier about the reviews, you can't, in my opinion, no matter which park you go to, and this is coming from somebody who's, in the last couple of years been to Disneyland Paris, you have to go and experience these parks for yourself, because there's going to be something that you absolutely love about this park that somebody else might look at and say, hey, that was lame, or that wasn't as great as the way they do it over here. So go experience it for yourself and be the judge. And I guarantee you there's going to be something that you'll like at any park that you end up going to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I wholeheartedly agree. So I mean, obviously, but
well, I mean, and I think that's the way that you have to take it, and that's the way that you have to, really approach going to the parks, whether it be Disneyland, whether it be Disney World. So let's get into it here. It's a great debate. So if you had to choose, Steve, and you could only pick one park, Stella is ready for the great debate. She's ready for it. So if you are, in talking about this here, what is it, in looking at the different parks, out of the Disneyland, Disney World, where do you give the nod to, kind of just to start us off?
So my argument is going to be, if you can't tell from the hoodie, that Disneyland is better than Walt Disney World. And I have a bunch of different bullet points that I can get to. Overall, I think for what, the intention behind the idea of the theme park and just everything about it, Disneyland has everything over Walt Disney World.
Yeah, it's tough for me. I love both parks. And again, from somebody who's grown up in Disney World, it'll always have that little bit of an edge for me because of the fact that, 1990, I'm walking down Main Street, USA with my grandparents, with my father who's passed away, with my family. So because of that, I feel like I kind of give the edge to there. I'll never forget, riding by, taking the little turn in 2001 around It's a Small World and not wanting anything to do with that ride because I'm 14 years old and looking up at the Pinocchio kind of, what is the quick service that Pinocchio has over there?
Pinocchio's Village House?
Village House. And there was a guy sitting there and he had his hoodie up and he had his headphones and I looked up at him and I threw him my devil horns like a cool guy that I was. And he looked back at me and he went, and that is a moment that, for whatever reason, every time I go on It's a Small World to this day, I always remember that moment there. And, so it's those moments there, those little moments through the years that, for me, going in 2013, bringing my girlfriend for the first time, my first trip there since 2001, being able to do that, going on there and experiencing Disney World with her, I've had all those moments there. But that said, a lot of what I liked in Disney World is no longer there anymore from when I was a kid. But that stuff does exist in Disneyland. So I think there's definitely an argument that can be made for both.
And to your point about nostalgia, to borrow a phrase, I believe that Disneyland has the edge in the nostalgia factor, not to be confused with the likability factor, of course.
No way.
But I think, you have to give it to the park that Walt actually designed. Yeah, he had a huge hand in Magic Kingdom, and yeah, he had a great vision for Epcot. But you have to remember that the vision that he had for Epcot is not the Epcot that we have today. He was envisioning this experimental prototype community of tomorrow that it borrows a lot from the idea, and you see a little bit here and there, but it's not what Walt really envisioned. And Disneyland is, you walk through Main Street, you walk down the front gates and everything down towards Sleeping Beauty Castle, and you really feel like you're walking in Walt's footsteps. And as a matter of fact, Walt Disneyland has a tour that's actually called Walking in Walt's Footsteps, where you can go and say, here's the kind of path that he took, and here's all of the different things. And, they point out the lights that are on above the firehouse and, everything. And you really feel Walt's touch when you walk around Disneyland. And there's just that sensation that you get, that you're walking around in history.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you there. And I mean, kind of hearkening to that nostalgia factor, for me, the part of Disneyland that I always have enjoyed the most, and my wife also enjoys the most, is Mickey's Toontown. And the fact that it is still there, and I know that it's kind of hanging on, and every year you hear that it's going to close down, it's going to be the last time that it's around. But, as a kid, the things I enjoyed most about Disney World was Mickey's Toontown. So I remember going in 2013 and being crushed that this area wasn't there anymore. No more Mickey's house. No more, Pluto's dog house hanging outside in the backyard there. All that is gone. And then we went to Disneyland, having no idea that this stuff was still there. And then all of it was there. And it was like, oh my gosh, like here's all this stuff. You've got Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin. You've got Gadget's Go Coaster, and you've got a lot. And I don't know if I made both those names up, but I feel like I was pretty close on both of them. So I'm gonna go with it.
Congratulations! I think that might be one of the first times.
Might have been, right? So, but I feel like those attractions are. I remember watching the Rescue Rangers cartoon, and I remembered Gadget, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And that ride looks totally run down, and looks like maybe it's ready to be replaced. But the idea that I remember watching that cartoon, and it brings me back. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think also that's kind of the idea is that, it's like Gadget built this thing with nuts and bolts and paper clips and stuff. So I think that's kind of the idea.
Oh, why it looks like it's falling apart.
but again, not that you're making my points or anything, but Disneyland also has the edge in those classic attractions. You go through and you go down the list, and you have some of those great classic dark rides like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. You have the Pinocchio's, I think it's Pinocchio's Daring Adventure. The dark rides that we don't have anymore at Walt Disney World. So I think, when you're looking, especially for something that's focusing on a family park, it checks all of the boxes. And it also has, in my opinion, better unique attractions, the attractions that aren't anywhere else, such as the former Californian Screamin', now relabeled the Incredicoaster, and Cars Land over at California Adventure, just to name a couple. Not to mention the unique shows like Mickey and the Magical Map. So I think overall, going with the unique attractions, whether it's the classic rides or the unique attractions to Disneyland, you got to give the edge to them.
And I think that's something Disneyland has started to do recently, too. And then you mentioned the Incredicoaster. Obviously, they also have the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction. But one place I'd give the edge to Disney World on is the fact that they continue to update the park with all these new things. I mean, yes, it's great that we have all that nostalgia that's in Disneyland. But I like the fact that at Disney World, if you're going and you're pining for a Frozen attraction, you've got the Frozen attraction over there. They're about to open a Star Wars, and obviously they're going to be doing it in both parks, but they're going to have Star Wars over there. They just opened Toy Story Land, and that obviously is going to be building into the fact that the new Toy Story movie's coming out next year. So I feel like those updated attractions, even though I love the nostalgia, it's great to go and see all these big attractions and see that it does feel like at Disney World there's always something new that's coming down the pike. Yeah,
but where else do you have Toy Story Midway Mania? Disneyland. And that brings me to my next point, where they have the attractions that they have that are, I guess, duplicates, or, you want to say they're copies or whatever the case may be. Disneyland still has the edge there. If you're talking about, for example, like Space Mountain, there's a Space Mountain in every park, but the Space Mountain at Disneyland and the Space Mountain at Walt Disney World are both very different. And I definitely give the edge to Disneyland Space Mountain because it's, I think, a little bit more thrilling of an attraction. It's a little bit cooler. I mean, granted, when I went, it had the Star Wars overlay. So, if I'm going, what was it? Not Cyberspace Mountain, but
Cyberspace Mountain.
Okay, it was okay. I know that was what they called it at Disney Quest, but the Space Mountain that I went on at Disneyland versus the Space Mountain that we have in Walt Disney World, I have to give the edge to those duplicate attractions at Disneyland. Space Mountain, the Pirates of the Caribbean that is over at Disneyland is much better. The Haunted Mansion, especially right now, because it has the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay, is, I think, in my opinion, a lot better. And the only attraction that I was going to give the edge to Walt Disney World compared to Disneyland, as far as the same attraction, was going to be Tower of Terror. But now that Guardians of the Galaxy is featured over at California Adventure instead, still got to give the edge to Disneyland.
I'd say probably for me the attraction, and I mean I like it in both parks, but I think that Splash Mountain at the Magic Kingdom is better than the Splash Mountain. And I know you're probably not. I don't think you're.
I give you that. Yeah.
Yeah, that one I know you're not huge on. I don't think either of those two, but I think that the Splash Mountain, and I'll never forget because my wife obviously, a little bit of a, as she'll say, a scaredy cat with some of the rides. But when it came to going on Splash Mountain for the first time in Disneyland, She went on it and felt like, pumped out her chest. She felt great about it. I felt she was ready for the one at Disney World. And went, wow, it's really a lot bigger over here in Magic Kingdom. So I do think I give the edge to Splash Mountain there. But I definitely agree with you on the other attractions as far as those kind of duplicate attractions are. Big Thunder Mountain is it's a great ride over in Disneyland.
Yeah, and not to mention that, but tell me, what are the Marvel meet and greets at Walt Disney World?
That is a good point. I mean, we did have that. Though, thank heavens it's no longer around. But the Star-Lord and Baby Groot one, as we said, is going to be closing down, and I think did last week. I think they do have maybe Spider-Man and Captain America. Am I making that up?
Well, they have it over at Disneyland. They have Spider-Man, Captain America. They have Black Panther. They have Black Widow. They have Loki. So you're not as restricted because of that agreement when long ago, now it seems like years and years ago, when Disney actually bought Marvel. Because we have all the Universal stuff and all the Marvel stuff there, we can't put anything in the Walt Disney World parks. But Disneyland doesn't have that kind of restriction, so they can do whatever they want as far as Marvel and whatever. So, I mean, that's, the fact that, yeah, they don't have the space to do as much, so they have to get a little bit more creative. But the fact that they can do that stuff and they're free to do it is, again, got to give the edge. Was there anything else as far as like the rides and that kind of thing that you wanted to talk about?
Well, and it's kind of going to lead to my point as to why I kind of lean towards Disney World is because of the amount of variety. There's 4 parks as opposed to 2, so this can be something that you're really going to be able to spend a full week over in Disney World and feel like not only are you at a theme park, but that you're at a world, so to speak, your own, I guess, for lack of a better term, land. You're really all encompassed in all things Disney, with all of the different. Obviously, all the different resorts, all the different restaurants, and the 4 major theme parks. And I think for me, some of the attractions that are specific to Epcot. Obviously, we spoke about Frozen earlier, but there are many attractions over at Epcot. Test Track, which really kind of harkens back to the idea of exploring and the idea of technology and everything to that extent. Those rides, even though Test Track technically is similar, if not to the Cars Land ride, right?
It's very similar, and I'm not gonna lie, I like the old Test Track better than the new Test Track. So,
well, I will say I like that the ride at the Cars Land ride there, which is, what is it, Radiator Springs. I think that ride is probably my favorite. It might be my favorite Disney attraction, period. So I'm making a bad point there, but. I think those specific rides, the Animal Kingdom rides, where you really feel like you're becoming one with the animals, being able to go out in the safari and see the animals that, unless you're going and doing a safari adventure out in South Africa or something, you're not going to be able to do that and have that experience like you do unless you go to Disney World. And they have Animal Kingdom right there. So for me, those things kind of lead me to, kind of back, Disney World.
Yeah, but as much as I love running and gunning with you, it's one of the good things about Disneyland is that you don't feel as compelled to have to do everything, because when you want to do everything that there is to do at Walt Disney World and try and get your money's worth, you leave a vacation from Walt Disney World completely exhausted. And that's just not the case over at Disneyland most of the time. There's not that sense of urgency, and everything has to be, you have to get everything done. And that kind of harkens back to the kind of, I feel like, the philosophies, having worked at Walt Disney World and kind of seen the behind the scenes, they're going to emphasize efficiency more than anything else. Yeah, every time, everywhere you go, safety is always first. Safety is always number one, regardless. And that's one of the things that I loved about the company. But they have the 4 keys in decreasing order, and first is safety, and last is efficiency. But I always felt like it was just efficiency. Okay, let's get everyone through. Let's get everyone through. You know, we have to make sure that we hit our numbers, have to make sure that we get as much people in our capacities and our targets and all that stuff. Whereas at Disneyland, I didn't feel like they care as much about that. They're, of course, more about safety, but they emphasize the show and the courtesy. They're more guest oriented, I feel, than Walt Disney World is. And I really felt, even we went to Disneyland and my wife and I were both cast members still. And we felt the same thing where Disneyland, it was just, you felt more, you know, whereas, yeah, as Walt Disney World, you're going to get that exceptional guest service. But at Disneyland, it's just a little bit, there's just that little bit extra special that even on top, above and beyond the normal Disney guest service that you get.
Well, I guess my next point, and I hear you on that for sure, because I will say that you know, I even the cast members, I feel like at Disneyland really went out of their way to chat with us, to relate with us, to, you know, there's that little place that's inside of Disneyland that I absolutely love, where you're going to do the character meet and greets, and you're in this like huge air conditioned space, and there's all the big kind of the television monitors, the big monitors that have like old school, like Disney type, Disney sing-along type videos that are playing along. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not at all.
Where Turtle Talk with Crush is?
Okay.
That area, I feel like the cast members in that area, probably because they're so damn happy because they've been standing in air conditioning all day, but they are usually, we've had some great conversations with those people, and it seems like they're having the time of their life while working down in Disneyland. So, you know, I think that I agree with you on that point. But if there's one point that I'm gonna win this on, I know I will, and I know this hits close to home for you. Is one of your things you're most passionate about in Disney, is that the restaurants and the amount of variety of restaurants on Disney World kind of outdo the restaurants in Disneyland. Disneyland's got some great ones, but Disney World, there's so many. And there's just something for everyone, I feel like, in Disney World.
I mean, I will give you that you have more choices, but would you rather a place that half-asses a lot of things or whole-asses good things that does really, really well? You know, I'm going to say that the food that we had at Disneyland is just as good as the food that we had at Walt Disney World. You know, we went to Steakhouse 55, and one of the best steaks that I ever had, one of the best dining experiences that I ever had. Our server was amazing, and everything that we had at Steakhouse 55 at Disneyland was just as good as any steakhouse that we've been to at Walt Disney World. So, I mean, I think we can agree to disagree on that one, but I mean, you're right in that I could talk for days on the food at Walt Disney World, but that's not giving any disrespect to the food at Disneyland.
No. I mean, I will say the food that we've had at Disneyland has been great. We ate at the place that's in that like New Orleans type vibe.
Are you talking about Blue Bayou or the other one?
The other one. Blue Bayou, I heard, is incredible, but it's always really hard to get any sort of reservation over there when we've gone down.
Yeah. I will say we had the, I don't know what it's actually called, but basically the beignet sandwich.
Yes.
Where it was, yeah. And we were like, everyone was like, when you get it, make sure that you share it. Like, it's something to share. And I'm like, I'm a man. I can eat my own sandwich, like blah, blah, blah. And, you know, in my heyday, I could probably pack it away. But we got there and I'm like, holy crap. Like, this is way too much food.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was so good, but it was just way too filling.
And I will say this as well. You know, I can't give the edge either way. The idea of being, you know, I've been to Cinderella's Royal Table. I think that's what it's called, where you go into the Cinderella's castle and you have your meal there. And we've been a couple of times. It's my wife's favorite character dining experience in any of the parks. Mine's actually Disneyland Paris has a really good princess dining option, but she loves Ariel's Grotto. Excuse me, Ariel's Grotto. And if you get down there to Disneyland, I will say that Ariel's Grotto is really nice. You're right on the water in California Adventure, either indoors and you can just kind of look around, or you could actually legit sit outside. And if you get down there and you're there when the event actually starts, they do a really good job. First, you get to meet Ariel when you first walk in. and then the rest of them, the rest of the princesses kind of come out and are introduced by night, and they each come out. They all do a little song. They all dance, and that is a great character dining. So if there's one area where I feel like you can't go wrong in either one, and I think the idea of being in the castle and eating in the castle is like, bougie wougie, but at the end of the day, really cool. But I also think Ariel's Grotto's done really well there as well.
Yeah, and also, even the quick service, the Jolly Holiday Breakfast Cafe that they have at Disneyland, we had some of the best food there because the Matterhorn macaroon. If you go to Disneyland, you have to go to Jolly Holiday Cafe, even if you just go for a snack, and grab the Matterhorn macaroon. It is amazing. We brought some back from us. It was so good.
And where is that? And where is that located?
So that is on Main Street. So if memory serves, when you're walking down Main Street, right when you're kind of getting to the hub, it's going to be to your left. It's where, if you use Walt Disney World as a point of reference, it's basically where Casey's Corner would be, or like where the Crystal Palace would be. So you go down Main Street, and once Main Street starts to open up, you go left, and it's right there.
There you go. And it's called Matterhorn's Macaroon?
Well, so it's called the Jolly Holiday Bakery Cafe after Mary Poppins. But the item that you need to get is the Matterhorn macaroon. There you go.
Very cool. Did you have any points that you want to hit on there about Disneyland getting the nod?
Of course. So the other thing that, as much as I love and respect the FastPass Plus system for the break that it gave me with the company, and the way that my career and my life overall took off after that, I have to give it to Disneyland for still having the classic FastPass system. It's the classic paper FastPass system where you only need to get one at a time, and it's still where it's not as I have to pre-plan and I have to make sure that I hit my, when it's either 60 days or 30 days or whatever it is, I have to make sure that I'm online registering for my FastPasses and that kind of thing. So it goes back to where it's not that sense of urgency. When we went to Disneyland for our vacation, we didn't have to plan our dining reservations 180 days in advance. We didn't have to make any FastPass selections 60 days in advance. In order to get, if you really want the best of the best at Walt Disney World, that's what you have to do. You have to wait until midnight on 180 days before your check-in date to get that reservation at Cinderella's Royal Table or Be Our Guest or whatever the case is. And you just don't have to worry about that kind of stuff at Disneyland. But that kind of goes back to the idea that because of the fact of where you are, Disneyland as a whole, it's more of because you're in Southern California, it's not, it's more of a destination as a whole where, okay, maybe you're going there for a bunch of different reasons. And Disneyland is just one of the things on your list because it doesn't penalize you as much if you stay off property. When you're staying on property, you still get some perks and, hey, you're walking distance to, both parks and everything like that, regardless of the hotel that you're staying at. If you stay at Paradise Pier, the least expensive hotel on property, you are still walking distance from both parks. If you're staying at the classic Disneyland Hotel, you are still walking distance from both parks. If you're staying at the Grand Californian, part of the hotel, literally, you can walk outside into the theme park, so but if you don't go to one of those three hotels and you do stay off property, you're not sacrificing as much because Disneyland really caters more to the locals and the annual pass holders than it does the world traveling tourists. Because Walt Disney World in and of itself is that destination, and that's what it prides itself on. But Disneyland really, you don't get penalized as much when you're not staying on property.
Yeah, I will say, because of who, my wife and I are, and we do travel sometimes an insane amount. And because we are last minute planners, I have zero argument when it comes to the fast passes being better at Disneyland than they are at Disney World. There's absolutely nothing more frustrating to the point that I can't get a fast pass. We're somebody who we went down to Disney World in July and we started planning that trip in June. And half the things, you know, we just understood that, hey, this is going to take. We're going to have to get to the park early. We're going to have to set aside a couple of hours for the rides over in Animal Kingdom with that are related to Avatar. We're going to have to take a good amount of time at Hollywood Studios for the Toy Story Land. When it comes to like Disneyland, that's not the case, and that's what makes Disneyland a lot more relaxing. Excuse me. And when it comes to that extent, we very well may end up heading there in a week or two, and we'll probably have more information on that next week if it does end up happening. And if that does happen, we don't have to worry. We know we can just get to the park in the morning. Make sure you get over there. Make sure we get our fast passes and focus on the trip at hand. So definitely for last minute planners, I give you the nod there. Disneyland is the way to go.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I will say as well is the idea of being able to just, you get your fast pass, and then you keep it with you and not have to worry so much about like technology and all that is also something that's not as stressful, because phones die during the day at Disney World, and you don't have to worry about, you know, your fast passes being there. I know they do have your the fast passes on the wristbands, but Disneyland, you have your ticket, you're good to go.
Excuse me, magic bands.
Oh, sorry, wristband. I called it a wristband. How terrible!
How dare you? That was, and I mean, okay, so like, not to get off on a tangent, but when I worked at Disney, especially when I worked for Disney Vacation Club, they hammered in proper nomenclature into your brain so much that that's why it irks me so much when people don't do it. But even when I would, like, what killed me the most was when other cast members would do it. And, you know, they said, okay, there's proper nomenclature for what you're doing for anything, regardless of whether it's your magic band or the act of putting your magic band up to the touch point. They actually told you, okay, so the proper nomenclature for this is you're going to touch your magic band, you're going to touch your magic band to the touch point. And it was, you know, but then you would have people that go, okay, you know, go tap your bracelet, and like, no,
no, brutal.
No.
That's cringe. That's pretty. Go tap your bracelet is cringe. That's right.
Well, because and I get it, because the idea is, you know, a tap is okay, you know, I'm gonna boop, and it didn't usually give enough time to read, and then people will get frustrated. Oh, why isn't it working? And it's like, well, because you have to actually, and because if you know, people still do it where they'll hold it like a couple of inches away from the touch point and expect it to work, and it's like, it's not that good. Like, you have to actually make contact with it. Right. But, you know, okay, rant over.
No, hey, but I'm with you. I'm with you. That would drive me nuts too. But if you know, kind of getting back to the debate, one of the points that I wanted to kind of hit on there is the idea of Epcot. There is no Epcot at Disneyland. So, you know, when you go, you know, all that comes with Epcot, you're taking that away when you go to Disneyland. So I feel like that's something that when you go to the parks is such a big thing, specifically as an adult who, you know, you enjoy going out there, you hear about the history, you hear about, you know, I feel like the history of the world, so to speak, and different countries and all that, and, you know, Hall of Presidents and everything. I feel like Disney history, it's definitely better over at Disneyland. But in terms of like history and of, you know, the world and of the United States, you got to give the nod to Disney World.
I guess, but I mean, we do also have great moments with Abraham Lincoln over at Disneyland. So.
Fair enough. And the next time I get down to Disneyland, I will make sure to drag my wife to that attraction. I've wanted to since I saw it on it was on the show with Al Bundy that's super famous. And
Married with Children?
No. Married with Children, yes. But then they brought it back. He's now on Modern Family.
Modern Family, yeah.
Yeah, and he's crying while he watches that attraction. And, you know, that I feel like is something I definitely need to try. I hear that's a great attraction.
And I don't want to get political, but I'm going to anyway. But Abraham Lincoln, Donald Trump.
Well, you know, hey, we'll try. Hey, I will say this: Hall of Presidents, and it was building up on us. You know, one of the big things that I wanted to do, my bachelor party weekend, was kick it off with a trip to the Hall of Presidents in the Magic Kingdom. And I got in there, and I loved the artifacts, and it was great. And I was just looking around at all these pieces of history and all the great presidents that were there. And then they got into the show, and it started off, and I was really amped. And about 2 or 3 minutes in, out like a light. Couldn't do much. 20, 30-minute complete nap through the entire thing, only to be woken up by my buddy because he thought the Donald Trump animatronic was tremendous, and it became a theme of the weekend. Donald Trump randomly going like that to one of the other animatronics. And it is somewhat creepy, but it's worth it to go and see that part of it. I'm sure the show itself is nice too. We'll have to go back and try it out again at some point, but it didn't happen for me the time. And I waited forever to get there, and then I was a total fail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all I had for my arguments for Disneyland. So I don't know. Who do you think won?
Well, I will say I will give you. Well, so one other thing I did want to ask you, which park do you give the nod to in terms of the fireworks show / parades?
Oh, Disneyland.
Yeah, it's got it. I didn't even bring it up because Fantasmic.
I agree with you. World of Color.
Yeah, World of Color is fantastic. Fantasmic over there is really good. I love the idea of the Fantasmic in Disney World being in that arena, but the show is really good there. It blows it out of the water, and I've actually really liked the parades there as well in Disneyland. So
yeah, because I'll give you 3 more words. Paint the night.
Ah, yes, that is really yeah. You might have won as you were going through all the Disneyland things, because we may or may not end up getting there relatively soon. If that does occur, again, we'll mention next week. But I do think that gave. I think he might have won the debate there on. But again, it really depends what you're in the mood for. It depends what you're looking for. And that was seeing all these different debates. It was somebody. Oh, Disneyland doesn't compare. If you know what you're going for, again, try to have your own experience with it. And I guarantee you're going to find something you thoroughly enjoy. I didn't even mention Indiana Jones, which I think is a really great attraction. I know it's a similar track to the dinosaur ride, but I think that's a great attraction as well. One of my favorites over there.
Yeah, I mean it's like exactly. It's kind of halfway between. Yeah, it's a unique attraction in that we don't have an Indiana Jones ride in Walt Disney World aside from the stunt show, someone was like, oh, it's the same exact ride. It's a turn for turn duplicate of Dinosaur, and it's like I don't even think it is, and even if it is completely different. It is so much different than Dinosaur. With all of the different just with the theming and everything. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, and they do a really good job. And I mean, I give you the nod too on Pirates of the Caribbean being fantastic over in Disneyland. I remember just blowing me away the second we got on that ride and being like, "Oh my God, we just went down this huge drop." So it's good stuff. So I can't. You're not going to get much hate from me when it comes to Disneyland. I enjoy it quite a bit. And so that is going to do it on our debate. Let us know what you think. Disney World, Disneyland. Let us know how you're feeling. I will go ahead and I will quickly check on I put this question out there and told everyone that if they had responded, we'd give them a little shoutski over on the show itself. So Karen C. over at the Walt Disney World Made Easy for Everyone group chat said, I love both. I can't pick a favorite. Gave her a like for that. And Kelly S. said, both are great, but nothing beats Disney World. So she's in the TOTS camp, so to speak. Tommy on the Spots camp. Tommy on the Spot camp. And, hey, at the end of the day, it's all Disney. And I feel like anyone who seriously goes, oh, you're going there, you should go here, has probably never really experienced both parks, because I do think that they're both great, and they both have their kind of their positives, and they're both good times. So we will be back.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, like there's a reason why we moved to Orlando instead of Anaheim.
Well, I will say
we're not running out to Disneyland anytime soon. So
what's that?
And we're not rushing to move out to Disneyland anytime soon.
No. Well, and again, I feel like it's different there because when you're in Disney World, you feel like you could literally spend weeks there. Whereas like one of the big things that's great about Disneyland is you can go there in 2-3 days and experience everything. If you have a park hopper, you can just walk right across the way from each park. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
So that is going to do it for us. We will be back next week, hopefully, on towards the end of the week as I prepare for a vacation somewhere, which we still haven't figured out, which is crazy. But we're focusing on one thing at a time. I will be posting photos on throughout the weekend. Or maybe, Steve, you will as well when you get down to Bakey's Not So Scary Halloween Party.
Yeah, maybe I can post all of the pictures that I keep saying I'm going to post eventually.
We will have to get better at it. We will make sure to get better at posting those things, and we'll do that. But Andrew Luck, Tom Brady in about 10 minutes. So that is going to wrap us up. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Steve, to our debate or to anything else you wanted to plug before we get out of here?
No, just have a magical week and go Caps.
All right. Well, there you go. And until next time, everybody, you can hit me on Twitter at TommyOnTheSpot, and make sure you interact with both of us at Disney101Pod. And you can hit Steve up on Twitter at SteveCJ556. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you can also find him over on Instagram at millennial_Falcon27. Is that also correct?
That is also correct.
Oh, there we go. We're getting there. And if you'd like to find me as well, you can find me at TommyOnTheSpot921. Shoot me a request, and I'll find you over there. Right now, we're still under lockdown over there, but we'll try to figure that out as we go along. But thanks so much for checking us out today, everybody, and for this week. Till next time, have a great magical week, and make sure to interact with us over on Twitter and also on all forms of social media. Until next time, take care. Have a great day.